What's going on, folks? Today's scent of the day and the scent that I'll be reviewing is Legend by Michael Jordan, or Michael Jordan's Legend. That's the thumbnail right there. Bam. Okay. Initial impressions. It's a sweet gourmand. A little bergamot on the top I smell. So it's a little bit of a citrusiness to it in the opening. I smell that citrus, bergamot, or whatever it is. And it smells sweet, gourmandy, like vanilla, maybe even chocolate, maybe even a hint of coffee, maybe. Yeah, it smells gourmandy. It smells like caramel, vanilla, and I would say even it smells unisex at this point. So yeah, that's all I get right now. I will report back later with a performance report. Alright, it's time for my final thoughts on Michael Jordan Legend Cologne. As far as the performance goes, I'd say this is an average performing cologne. It has good longevity, but the sillage and projection is pretty weak. It's below average sillage and projection, but it does last pretty long. At least on my skin, it lasts pretty long. Also, it is a eau de cologne. It's not an eau de toilette, so it's not as concentrated as an eau de toilette. So that being said, I think this is a very good cologne. The only issue I have with it is the dry down. The dry down to my nose, it smells a little weird because it's got a lavender note in it. I mean, it's a nice gourmand. It's got like a nice chocolatey, coffee and sweet vibe to it. But when it starts drying down, the lavender pops up a little bit. It becomes more prominent. And I think there's something about the lavender that clashes with the coffee, or it clashes with something. And to my nose, it just doesn't feel right. So me personally, I don't like the dry down. I'm being really picky because I have 3 other gourmands that are in the same vein as this, and I'm able to compare it to them. So I'm being really picky here. But the dry down, there's something about the lavender and the dry down that just doesn't work for my nose. Because I'm able to compare it to the other scents, I'm being critical about it. But if I didn't have anything else to compare it to, I would say this is a great scent. This is a great gourmand, and everything's fine and dandy. But personally, out of the 4 cheap gourmands that I have, this is probably the one that I like the least. I have the Cuba Prestige, which is a gourmand that's similar to this, supposed to smell a lot like Amen, and I like the dry down on that a lot better. And then the Playboy VIP I have, which is to my nose, it's a nicer scent because it's got like a nice boozy note to it. It has like a rhubarb, and it's got a rum note that makes it smell nicer to my nose, and I prefer the smell of that one. I also have that Golden Sands by al-Rehab, which has a nice oud note to it, like a really low-key oud note, and it smells a lot more natural. If you have a cheap gourmand already, like if you have Playboy VIP, if you have Golden Sands by al-Rehab, if you have Cuba Prestige, I don't see you needing this at all, because it's kind of redundant in your collection, unless you're just a collector that wants just a big variety of everything. You know what? I'm just gonna make it a battle of the cheap gourmands. Why not? If you would like a little oud in your gourmand, then Golden Sands by al-Rehab would be your best choice. If you want a little boozy note in your gourmand, then you go with Playboy VIP. If you want a coffee note in your gourmand, then you go with Michael Jordan Legend. Cuba Prestige is just a solid gourmand, and it dries down really nicely. I enjoy the dry down of that the most. If you have a cologne collection for practical purposes, I don't think you need 4 cheap gourmands. So I would just pick one of them that you would think we would like based on what I just said. You know, if you're a collector that just wants a whole bunch of different flavors, you couldn't make an argument for having every single one of these because they all smell slightly different. They have different nuances. I look at things from a more practical utilitarian perspective and not so much of a collector's perspective. So, yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and I will smell you later.